The past couple years have been a surprise to many people. Others have known it was coming for a long time. COVID-19 has been a gut punch to the world. It has changed everything. How we work and learn, how we spend our free time, how we get our food and everyday necessities. Who is ultimately essential and who isn't?
It has changed society forever and crushed world economies. But it isn't the first pandemic we've been through, and it won't be the last. Here are the 5 deadliest pandemics in history. Think today's pandemic makes this list?
Let's dig into this.
In December of 2019, we started to hear stories of a strange new disease coming from a market in China. Everyone at that time was pretty sure it was not being passed from person to person. Boy, were we wrong. By January of 2020, we were watching in real time as a new worldwide pandemic exploded.
By March of 2020, cases were reported in 114 countries. We have seen hospitals completely overwhelmed, businesses shut down, schools closed, and entire countries on total lockdown trying to stop or slow the spread. We have learned how to wash our hands, social distance, and wear masks. We went through a period where sneezing or coughing in public would make people run faster than anybody ever imagined. And its encroaching on someone's space could cause fights.
We've learned some valuable lessons too. We have so many heroes among us. Our healthcare system was nearly pushed to the breaking point, but with help, it did not fail. The people who produce our food and our necessities, work in grocery stores and fast food restaurants, and deliver products and packages are absolutely essential to our lives.
We have also seen possibly unprecedented argument between public health needs and personal rights. We have watched as social media has made it possible for weird and uninformed and even dangerous information to fuel arguments and fights and protests. It has been an amazing and surprising shocking time for this world.
And we are nowhere near done with this virus, which mutates incredibly fast and kills indiscriminately. We are so fortunate to have had years of research allowing the fastest vaccine production in history. And the research continues. Unfortunately, the infection rate and death toll continue as well. As of the writing of this video, it is estimated that more than 6 million and maybe as many as 17 million people have died, while many millions more have been infected. Many who survive have long-term debilitating effects from this disease.
In 541 AD, the first actually recorded outbreak of bubonic plague hit Europe, killing between 25 and 50 million people in 1 year of devastation. It killed an estimated 5,000 to 10,000 people a day, along with huge numbers of animals in Constantinople alone. It was so bad that the graveyards and burial places were overflowing. Constantinople's Emperor Justinian, who did get the disease but survived, ordered his military to help dispose of victims. Many were dumped into the sea.
Bubonic plague, caused by the bacteria Yersinia pestis, is carried by fleas. The symptoms include swollen lymph nodes as large as chicken eggs in the neck, armpits, and groin, fever, chills, body aches, and even headache. An infected person might die within hours, or could linger for days. There are stories of people running through the body-littered streets, oblivious of where they were and what was happening before they just dropped dead.
Researchers have argued for years about the actual numbers surrounding the Justinian plague. Reports of as many as 40% of the population of Constantinople dying and the plague ending in just a year are disputed. However, this pandemic still makes it to number 4 on many lists of the most devastating pandemics of all time.
In 1918, an influenza pandemic broke out and was quickly spread around the world by the movements of troops in World War I. It didn't start in Spain, but they were the only country accurately investigating and reporting statistics of the pandemic. This gained them the honor of having the pandemic named for them, and we now know the outbreak as the Spanish flu.
It is estimated that the flu pandemic infected more than 1/3 of the world's population and killed up to 25 million people in the first 25 weeks. In Philadelphia, priests actually rode through the streets collecting bodies in the back of carts for burial. In parts of India, the death toll was so high that they were forced to leave bodies out for the jackals. There was no one there to bury them.
Until this outbreak, the flu was known to kill mostly children, the elderly, and those with weakened immune systems. This flu was different and seemed to target the young and healthy. Estimated half of all deaths were people in their 20s and 30s. The effect on industry and the food supply was incredible, with widespread famine and manufacturing down around 50% following the outbreak. Up to 500 million people were infected, and 20 to 50 million people died before quarantine and social distancing measures helped slow the spread. By late 1919, the pandemic disappeared as quickly as it had started.
The HIV-AIDS crisis exploded into the news in 1981, but the disease was first identified in 1976 in Africa, and it may have been around before that. A documented case of HIV was identified in 1959. Caused by a virus and spread by bodily fluids, it was regarded as a terrifying death sentence for years, and this pandemic is far from over.
More than 60 million people have been infected with HIV-AIDS worldwide, and 36 million have died. Researchers were quick to identify causes, but a cure has still not been found. Treatment has improved dramatically over the years, and it can generally be considered a chronic and fairly manageable disease. People can live long and active lives with HIV-AIDS now with proper medical care.
As of 2018, there were an estimated 38 million people living with HIV-AIDS in the world, with 23 million of those cases in Africa, and 1 million plus cases in the US. And researchers are still looking for a cure.
If you say the plague or the Black Death, most people instantly know what you mean. The disease probably came from Asia via fleas on rats that hitched rides on sailing ships. Bubonic plague is caused by a bacterium, and the name Black Death comes from black spots on the skin, which were used to identify those infected. The pandemic seems to have started in 1346, and it spread quickly, but it didn't end until 1353.
At the time, the cause and spread of disease were not understood. People were smart enough to know that ships coming into port with dead and dying crew on board probably wasn't a good thing. Some cities enforce isolation rules on ships coming into port, which may have helped slow the disease somewhat. This would be the first known use of the quarantine in Western worlds.
The Black Death changed the world. It's estimated that the global population was about 450 million at the time, and the pandemic is estimated to have killed somewhere between 75 and 200 million in less than 5 years. Cities and towns throughout Europe, Africa, and Asia were absolutely devastated. The death of up to half of the population contributed to further suffering for the survivors when crops weren't harvested or planted and food became scarce.
Today, the bubonic plague is treated with antibiotics and is considered a curable disease if diagnosed early and treated aggressively.
We're currently living through a pandemic that has already made it to the top 5 deadliest pandemics of all time. Stay safe.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.